Good evening, everyone. This is Jersey Hobby Hour, an addendum to episode 12. I'm Steve Chin, the host, and with me I have Alan Wan. What's up, Alan? How you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing? We kind of fucked up yesterday.
And we also have Sean as our special guest, returning from yesterday. What's up,
Alan,
Sean? How you doing?
Alan, 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 Alan.
Sorry.
Steve. No, I couldn't resist. Thanks for having me
What
on
we're
the show.
doing tonight, this is unusual that we were broadcasting back to back on a Wednesday and Thursday. This is just simply because we realized that we had some downtime during the live stream yesterday where we actually lost part of the conversation to the void. Basically, I think there might have been a hiccup in internet connectivity or web access to the stream servers for YouTube. So what we talked about actually did not get recorded. So to bring us back around and make sure that everyone gets filled in on what happened during the conversation, what we're doing is we're just having this quick little video, which will hopefully only be about 10 or 15 minutes, maybe a little tad bit longer because we always run long. Basically, we're going to just hit the bullet points that we hit yesterday. And we're going to start with kind of where we crashed out last time, and that's basically right after the Activision Blizzard production house stuff and talking about the Warcraft trailer from BlizzCon 2015. Warcraft trailer was great for the new movie that's coming out next year in June, I believe. I think it's phenomenal. Alan, quick response about what it was like.
About Warcraft trailer?
Yeah,
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Really went over this though.
Come on,
I
Alan. Good
think
job.
I was I think I was the only one out of those three that thought it was all right. I mean, I'm not a hardcore fan as both you guys in terms of knowing the lore and everything else. But I'm personally excited for the movie. Hopefully, this is a gateway for brand new video game IPs to come to the movies. Hopefully, this will be good as long as Assassin's Creed, and then we get a horde of basically all these video game movies that will be coming out. What do you think, Sean?
I'm really excited for it. I like the way that they did it, really holding true to Blizzard's renowned capabilities with the cutscenes. To put it to a full-length feature is incredible. I like the fact that they went with the old lore, their first real major title that put them on the scene with Warcraft, the real-time strategy game. So it's not really from the World of Warcraft universe as much as the original, so that they're going to have a lot of material to work with going forward. So I'm really interested to see where they go with this. What about you, Steve?
I am excited because I've been a Warcraft fan all the way back since Orcs vs. Humans and the first Warcraft game. I actually watched my uncle play it when I was really young, and that's part of the reason why I got into that universe. It was really interesting. I think, to be honest, I think he was playing on PlayStation. He wasn't even playing it on PC. Really weird. Anyways, the story for this looks just great. I mean, I really expected them to kind of portray the Alliance as sort of more the good guys, kind of like they did in the video games, but they kind of expanded it to this sort of, hey, there are two sides to every story kind of thing. Really great. The cinematics look great, and the CGI looks phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to this. Next up from BlizzCon, basically there's another three things that were sort of bullet points for what we wanted to cover and what we did cover in the show last night. And it's the arena mode for Heroes of the Storm. So Heroes of the Storm is a MOBA, a multiplayer online battle arena, very similar to League of Legends and to Dota. Basically, they came out with a new mode, which is a condensed form of their original concept, where it's this sort of army on army, base on base attack and defend kind of thing, and they turned it into more of a King of the Hill objective-based sort of smaller, quicker battle arena. Basically, they want to make it a little more fast-paced and focused on objectives to try and separate themselves from the sort of long game that you get out of League of Legends and Dota. Sean, what was your first take on this when we talked about it?
Well, when I played Heroes of the Storm for the first time, I really found it kind of like League of Legends Lite and Dota 2 Lite. They really tried to make it more of a casual game, nothing too hardcore, really quick and to the point, a lot of fighting 5-on-5. And I don't think they really did a good job trying to compete straight head-to-head with League of Legends and Dota. And I think they realized that their strength was the actual arena, player-to-player combat. The fact that they're changing their approach and actually getting rid of all the minions and focusing on just objectives and players is fantastic. They're taking the best out of their competitive scene in World of Warcraft, which is their arena, which is small player 5-on-5, 3-on-3 combat, and they're putting it into their MOBA, which is unprecedented. And I think they're on the right path to really niche, create the niche in this market to really get a foothold for the esports scene. So I'm really looking forward to this. I might go back and give it a try now.
Alan, what's your take on Here Is the Storm coming out with a new mode? I mean, I know you didn't really spend a whole lot of time playing it, if at all.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, just like Tommy Lee Jones said, in the future, I just don't care. I mean, this isn't my market. I've never really grown fond of MOBA games. However, this makes sense. This makes sense, obviously. You basically take one of your core strengths and you elaborate on it, and basically like Sean said, of course, they're trying to compete against Dota and League of Legends. They have to find a different way to get a foothold into the esports scene. So I think this is a great move for them.
You mentioned core strengths, and one of them is like characters in the universe. And they actually came out with a few new characters, one of which is Cho'Gall from the Warcraft universe, which is like a two-headed ogre, and it's going to be a two-player character. Basically, two players are playing one character in the game, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's really weird, but at the same time, it's different enough that it might get people to just play it just for fun. Sean, what was your take on having a two-player champion?
Well, I'm not sure they really went into the whole how they're actually going to have the mechanics work with the two people, but I can imagine if they have to fight over control of who gets to move it, the amount of trolling that can happen, screwing around with the other person to make their day miserable. But I think it's a really unique mechanic. Yeah, that's my MO over there. But I think it's pretty unique. I'm very interested to see how that actually plays out.
Okay, next up we have Overwatch. Now, a whole bunch of different videos came out for Overwatch. They announced some new characters that are playable in the game, and basically, just want a quick little take on what Overwatch is, how you feel about it, and basically, Overwatch is this sort of first-person MOBA style game, very much in the breadth of Team Fortress, like a mixture of Team Fortress and something like Heroes of the Storm or League of Legends. Basically, taking this sort of aspects of first-person shooting from Team Fortress and those sort of item building and abilities that League of Legends does. Sean, how do you feel about this new Overwatch game, and what do you think it brings to the genre?
Well, for current first-person shooters, you have the traditional ones. You have like the Battlefront, CS:GO. Then you have the hybrids, which are it's more of like Destiny trying to make first-person shooter MMOs, and then Fallout, which is like an MMO RPG with a first-person shooter. Now you have Overwatch merging it with the whole MOBA scene, where you have a massive pool of characters that you can play with different unique feeling to them. So you have like a sniper, you have a tank, then you have someone that wields like non-traditional weapons. It's a very interesting appeal that I think is going to offer a really unique experience. It's going to be a lot of fun like Team Fortress was. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I see a lot of people playing it on the beta, and it seems pretty interesting to watch. How it's going to survive in the market, I'm not really sure. What do you think, Alan? Have you played any Team Fortress of the like before?
Yes. Unlike Heroes of the Storm, this is a game that I'm definitely looking forward to. I think we all saw the trailer for this, and that was actually what kind of hyped me up for this game. Being able to do these different classes. It reminded me of the days of playing Team Fortress back on the old Half-Life, and I really enjoy that game. So it's definitely, for me, it looks a little different. It's more appealing to me as I think you guys said it does have the MOBA aspects in it. However, this game does have that appeal to me, though.
Okay, so next up on the list from BlizzCon, and probably one of the more important ones, at least to me, is the World of Warcraft Legion cinematic trailer that they have. And basically, it's essentially the initial video that you get when you open the package, stick the disc in, and finish installing the game. Phenomenal. I kind of explained what it was. Varian Rin the King of Stormwind talking to his son, explaining to him that what it takes to be a leader, that you have to fight for what you believe in, and it's him on a airship traveling to an island that seems to be under attack by the Legion, and that's when like an infernal like crashes through his airship, and Sylvanas helps him. Well, a lot of really cool battle scenes, really awesome cinematics. I don't know if either one of you guys have watched the trailer since yesterday, because I know yesterday you guys didn't watch it. Did you guys get a chance to watch it, and what do you guys think about the new Legion game that's coming out?
I haven't watched it.
I've seen it, but to be honest, it just looks like any other cinematic. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know any of the lore. I didn't pay attention to it, so I just level grind. I'm very shallow. Obviously, I'm playing Legacy of the Void on casual, trying to just get to the story, which is ironic. But yeah, I didn't see anything that special for me. I mean, remember, I'm not a huge fan, so don't get me wrong. If you're a huge fan of it, like Steve said, he mentions this character. I have no idea what he's doing. But yeah, sorry, that was kind of a tangent.
Interesting that you went with it's a little bit boring, just another cinematic. I think we're so used to how awesome Blizzard cinematics are that we're just so used to them. We expect them to be that quality. So when they come out, we're not like, wow, this is really cool. It's now what's in the content. Does it really appeal to me? And obviously for you, that didn't really appeal to you. I didn't even watch it, but I'm sure they did a great job with it.
Oh yeah, no,
The appeal though to the game doesn't really do it for me. So I didn't, go out of my way to watch it. I'm not going to go back to that, that grind.
Sure.
No. I'm sticking with the Starcraft.
The Clash of Clans.
Yeah, it's
for now.
It was good. I like the concept. I like the direction that they're going. The regurgitated content, though, they're bringing back something that was already done in the universe and in the game. Players have spent years doing this content. Now they're bringing it back with a twist, and I'm not so sure.
It seems lazy. To be honest, it seems really lazy on Blizzard's part. I mean, don't get me wrong. People are still going to play the game. I mean, I know that World of Warcraft subscriptions have dropped dramatically over the years, but people still play the game.
I mean, we're also at 10 years at this point.
Yeah, I know that. I know it's so that's why it's kind of like it's a long drawn kind of franchise. I think maybe either they come out with Warcraft 4 or they go for a sequel for WoW 2. I don't know.
I mean, speaking of another sort of property that they have that's taken a long time, I mean, we do have Starcraft. And, of course, we got news about that at BlizzCon. And they actually had panels and sort of laid out what they have in store for the future of Starcraft. And part of that is actually having new content, new missions that are going to be available, specifically revolving around Nova, the character in that universe, which is interesting to me at least, as well as coming out with some new co-op missions, as well as new unit skins and sound packs as well. Those laid out in links in the original video description from last week, or rather from yesterday. But I think all this new content for StarCraft that's going to be continued to be released even after this expansion is great. Sean, Alan, what do you guys think in terms of new content that's coming for StarCraft, and do you see that these actually add a lot of value to the existing game?
I'm actually laughing because they mentioned the character Nova. Actually, back a couple of years ago, StarCraft was actually supposed to have a game on consoles called StarCraft Ghosts that they canceled, and Nova was supposed to be the main character. So it's kind of funny that now they're gonna release missions for her. So to me, it feels like they're probably gonna take a lot of the cancel aspects of StarCraft Ghosts into those missions. That's what I think. Sorry about that. But in terms of the future of StarCraft, right now I am playing Legacy of Void. I'm actually on the last mission, and there's a prologue. That's not a spoiler. There's going to have those things. I don't know what's going to happen.
You mean epilogue, and
epilogue,
that is a spoiler because there wasn't any epilogues in the other games.
I don't know. Yeah, there was with Zeratul when he found the
Alan?
It does.
Alan?
In Brood War. Oh, come on, shut up.
That was like a secret mission. That was a hidden mission.
It's close enough. But yeah, I mean they're gonna definitely continue this franchise. StarCraft has been loved by like two or three generations by now. It was like 98 was the year that it came out, I believe. So they build such a deep lore with that. So they're definitely going to push forward in terms of the story with new characters, obviously. What do you think, Sean?
I think it's an interesting approach to getting some value out of the game because I'm going to be, pretty certain that it's going to be paid for DLC, at least the skins aspect, making your units look unique in the multiplayer. The co-op missions is pretty cool. That they're going to be releasing new like actual content for what is it, the storyline and co-op missions. That's unprecedented. They've never done that before. All their patches were for multiplayer up until this expansion. So I think that's pretty unique for Blizzard and their RTS scene. Curious how that's gonna pan out with the DLC. How much is it really gonna cost us? Is it gonna be like $10 a skin? We're gonna see what the value is.
So
people are really gonna want it.
We touched on this last night, and I think it's important enough to bring up as well. I mean, in terms of other RTS games that are out there, there's really not a whole lot that's going on. And part of that is because, I mean, the genre is just a sort of a dying breed because it's strictly on PC. And there isn't really a whole lot out there in terms of the console for strategy games, real-time strategy games. I mean, you have Halo Wars, but that's something that happened a while ago and really hasn't spawned any new games like it. We talked about Grey Goo, which is a game that's available on Steam, and it's really sort of an indie sort of RTS game. And Starcraft also just doesn't compare with something like Civilization or something like that, which gets iterations all the time, but they're completely different beasts in terms of the way that they're played. Now, StarCraft, of course, in order to extend the longevity of the game, they're going to come out with new content. But, I mean, that's also partly because they need to keep the game alive for the esports portion of their business and sort of keep that community alive because it's thriving a lot better than the sort of players that want to just buy it for the story or just buy it for the sort of campaign stuff that you're getting from them. And esports, being a booming business now, of course, they want to have those things coincide with one another. Of course, new units in the story might mean new units for the multiplayer, or vice versa, although not necessarily. And now, speaking of esports specifically, it's interesting to note that we brought up a little mention about whether or not it compares to chess. Sean, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Well, I always like to compare it to chess because it's a well-respected and well-known game, and when you're trying to explain a game like StarCraft to someone that has no idea what it is, I think it's a pretty fair comparison. Not saying that they're very similar, but when you think about it together, you have to make you have to make informed decisions that are going to be predicting what your first move is up to the next 3 or 4, and then you have to actually know what the other person's going to do. So you have to play your game and the others at the same time. When you're doing this, it's like you're playing chess at 1,000 miles an hour, though. You have so many different aspects of StarCraft. You have to manage your economy and your army at the same time while trying to figure out what the other person is doing. The physical aspect of your efficiency in keybinds and actions per minute for how fast you can click your mouse and coordinate your units, building them, and then controlling the army at the same time. There's far more going on than there is in chess, and it creates this really impossible skill cap that can never be attained. And even the best players still struggle to, the people that were in the world championship, could still have far more to improve on. And that kind of high skill cap draws me to the game. Alan, what do you think about the high skill cap of StarCraft as a whole compared to chess?
I think StarCraft is a lot more obviously, like you just elaborated a lot. StarCraft is obviously a lot more complex. I mean, if you were to dumb it down to someone, chess is a great comparison. But I think StarCraft is a far more complex game than that meets the eyes because there's a lot of, like you said, you do a lot of like macroing, right? You have to, and then basically you have to keep track of so many things in your mind. Chess, there's a board. These are the preset pieces. You can kind of determine what you can do. However, like you said, I think you mentioned before in the stream, in order to like figure out what your opponents are doing, you have to kind of earn that respect, by exploring, going out of your way to make sure that you see like, hey, okay, he's gonna build these units. I'm gonna combat them with these guys basically, or I see where he's building this. I'm gonna try to flank him from here and try to take out his base before he does that. So I think that StarCraft is a lot more complex than most people is a lot more complex than some people actually think it is actually.
Just to
Steve.
quickly elaborate
Mm-hmm.
on what you just said there, yeah, that was the thing with chess. All the information's in front of you. Everyone can see in plain view what is going on in the board. In StarCraft, you actually have to earn that, like you said. You have to go out of your way to try and figure out and attain the information that the other person is, hiding from you through fog of war. So that's a whole other element that is, completely unique from chess. So yeah.
Well,
Steve,
You
something
need Black
else
Sheep Wolf.
that I brought up was rock paper scissors. So rock paper scissors is a quick game that everyone knows the rules because you have three components: rock paper and scissors, and you know what beats what all the time. Now, in something like StarCraft, you have those elements because certain units do regularly beat other units of a different type. And unlike in chess, where you have the same units, every unit is powerful in its own right. They're different in how they play, but in terms of what consistently beats the other piece, there isn't that, right? It's all about just placement of the units. Now, that's not to say that in StarCraft, movement of your units isn't important, but there's certainly another layer on top of just the fact that, hey, I have a pawn and I have a rook, and they move in these two different fashions, but they are still both equally powerful in their own right. Whereas, something like in rock paper scissors, rock does beat, rock beats scissors, but paper beats rock. There's a strength and a weakness that's associated with a particular piece in the game. And StarCraft takes that to another level even, and sort of adds the extra layers, of HP and damage type, and then you also have movement, right? So I definitely brought to the table last night that, hey, rock, paper, scissors is definitely this thing where you need to read your opponent, and you need to be able to play the right move in order to beat them. But there is also another layer to it, another layer in terms of, comparison to chess. And I think that's sort of the beauty in something like a video game, because you get these small intricacies that you need to learn in order to progress in something like esports. Now, I think esports, each individual game actually provides a different sort of skill set, and like to compare this to something like League of Legends, they're really two separate animals. Sean, what do you think about the difference between something like a MOBA and StarCraft?
Well, with a MOBA, you have completely different objectives. It's a slower pace game, very minimalized responsibilities that you have. You're in charge of one unit, and you have to control every action that you make in a MOBA is going to be far more impactful than in an RTS. Arguably, if you go and you die in a MOBA, you're sitting there staring at a blank screen for a good 30 seconds doing nothing. So there's a lot of repercussions that you have with that. I don't think there's any way you can actually compare the two. It's a matter of taste. Which one do you prefer? An overview controlling massive different elements of an entire battle, or do you just want to control one unit and work as a team? And that's the other thing with a MOBA. You're working with someone else. For the most part, in RTSs, you really go by yourself. I mean, you can play with friends, 2v2, 3v3, but it's not really balanced around that. It's balanced around the 1v1 aspect. So it's a totally different beast. Now, as far as the esports scene, where you have the different kind of impact with Blizzard trying to get into the esports scene, with Activision Blizzard, making their own esports division that they just held with ESPN. Was it the Steve Bornstein, that was the former CEO of ESPN and NFL Network, and he's going to be he's going to be as the chairman for their esports division. When you have the RTS like StarCraft, they're in, like you said before, Steve, the RTS scene. There's really no other RTS besides StarCraft out there. There were a couple that you mentioned that just really haven't met the same impact. In Korea, StarCraft is just as big as any other actual sport that's out there. So you have the NFL, championship was matched by the World Championship of StarCraft in viewership. In Korea, they have the StarCraft professional players on Coke cans and memorabilia that they have out there that's selling just as well as your favorite team's jersey. But outside of Korea, the presence really isn't that big. With the MOBAs, though, when you're competing against Riot with League of Legends and Valve with Dota, it's really interesting to see how they're Heroes of the Storm is going to fare. Alan, how do you think about the Blizzard's impact in the esports scene?
To add to that,
Yeah.
Alan, do you also think that competition between, or at least inside the genre, is important in order to progress sort of esports and get more people involved?
I would to Steve's question first. I think it is actually you need this competition within within the genre in order to actually help the sport itself and actually help to make sure you get quality content. If you're basically the only game in town, basically you might get lackadaisical and not make content to be as good because because you already have the market share saturated. But then if you have like competing like Dota, you have League of Legends, and you have Heroes of the Storm, you have competing factions. You guys are competing for the same market essentially. So you want to make more quality content, so then people are more willing to play your game as opposed to the other game. I mean, I'm not like I said, I don't know, I haven't played MOBAs a lot, so I can't tell the difference between the three. So question to you guys, like, how different is each of these games? Where like, is there like a huge difference? Where if I'm gonna play Dota, is it really hard for me to go play League of Legends, or is it really hard for me to play Heroes of the Storm?
I think the major difference that I see a lot in different MOBA games is basically the movement mechanics. A lot of that is really what determines, to me, what I feel like is a good game, and that's really because of how fast-paced it needs to be. When you're fighting, because these games are typically like a 5-on-5 or something like that. When you're fighting as a group with 5-on-5, things need to happen very fluidly. So the lag time in movement, what kind of movement abilities you have, and just sort of the natural pace of your units or your characters that you can play as, I think those are really what define sort of the game. In addition, I think the sort of stylistic choices that they make, because if you look at something like Smite or League of Legends or Dota or Heroes of the Storm, they all have sort of a fantasy sort of feel to them, but they all have a slightly different art style. They all have different backgrounds for their characters, and I think that's important, at least for the casual player, who is really part of the content. I'm saying that players are content for the professional players, or even just players who want to play or try to play competitively. I think picking up those people who are just kind of glancingly interested is really important, just to make them part of the community, so that the hardcore have someone to play against. As far as RTSs go, I'm bringing this back to Starcraft. I think that like other genre, other art styles and stylistic choices inside the genre of RTS is important, because then you get more casual players who are just kind of glancing by because of those things involved in something like esports, or just get them involved in playing the game, and that's important for driving up viewership for something like the esports scene. This is something that's key when you look at something like FPS games. Look at Halo, look at Call of Duty, and look at Counter-Strike. You kind of lump them all into this sort of FPS game type or game genre, but yet Counter-Strike is almost exclusively a PC esports game, and Call of Duty is almost exclusively an Xbox game or PlayStation game in terms of the esports. It doesn't matter like what platform they're on; they actually just draw more people into the genre. Someone who's going to play Call of Duty might say, I kind of want to play Counter-Strike because that looks like a lot of fun, and it's similar to what I know already. So I think there's definitely some merit to that. Sean, do you think that having something like a competitor like Counter-Strike to Call of Duty is something that StarCraft really needs to push forward in the esports community, or do you think they can survive on their own?
I completely feel like this is the whole, when you're by yourself, you're a monopoly. You're gonna fall off. You're gonna take advantage of your people. You're not gonna put out top quality content. That's not the case with Blizzard. They always put out the best work, and they're always working to really expand on that. The fact that they're putting out, which is unprecedented, new content for StarCraft after the fact that it's been released is incredible. I think that's homage to Blizzard's attention to detail and appreciation for the fans and the user base that they have. Starcraft is definitely not going to be an issue in that case. It is one of the best and one of the only RTS because of how finely tuned and polished the game is. Of course, there's always going to be balance changes, and they're always very much on top of that. I don't know if you were following any of the previous StarCraft 2 launches, but there were pages of patch notes that you had to go through pretty much every couple months on just minute balance changes. So really, they're not going to fall off. You're not going to have a problem with the lack of competition. You know, they're going to say utmost quality.
Bringing it back to StarCraft directly, and speaking of the quality and the polish that Blizzard puts into their games, how do you guys feel about StarCraft as a whole, or at least StarCraft Legacy of the Void as a whole right now, after having a little bit of time to explore it, a little more than just one night? I mean, we have 2 nights now. To explore the game both in multiplayer, single player. You guys have any responses or feelings about new units or the way the menus are set up or anything? I mean, even the story a little bit. Alan, what do you feel?
Sorry, I'm trying to set up my Linus for fantasy. To be honest with you, sorry guys. Trying to think whether I should start Charles Clay or not. What was it again?
So basically what we're looking at is sort of a general thoughts on how Legacy of the Void came out and what you feel about the single player, new units, or even the multiplayer.
I love this. Right now, so far, I've been only playing the single player. I think I've played a few games of multiplayer with you three. I've yet to touch the co-op mode, which Steve has been talking really good about. He'll probably talk about that later. But in terms of playing the single player, I've been playing on casual. Sorry, guys. I've been trying to get the story more. A lot of the missions seem kind of redundant. They seem like, here, blow these 3 things up. All right, build a base, blow these things up, move around. I mean, gameplay-wise, not something crazy you can walk home, you can take home with. But for me, since I followed StarCraft, since 1998. I'm going to want to play the storyline, and the story is fantastic. Okay, I mean, there's certain things I would question here and there, but, since I'm such a hardcore fan, I just don't care. I love it. Right now, I'm on one of the last missions. I'm excited to see what happens to all our heroes, and kind of see, where that kind of sets up for the future of the StarCraft franchise. Sean?
Well, I haven't done any of the campaign. Actually, I'm curious, how would you rate, while we're still on the topic, how would you rate this campaign versus the Wings of Liberty arc and then the Heart of the Swarm? So far, not that you finished it, but,
Well, like the first, I think for me, the Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, they seem to be driven by the most cheesiest thing, love. I mean, like, the Wings of Liberty, the love of Raynor to kind of love of Raynor for Kerrigan to kind of bring her back. I mean, spoiler alert, trying to bring her back to become, trying to de-infest her. And then in the second one, which is Heart of the Swarm, are we allowed to say spoilers about that? I mean,
yeah, why not?
We kind of know. Whatever. You shouldn't be here. But well, Kerrigan, because of how much she was in pain because she thought Raynor dies, her love for him kind of drives her back to becoming, the Queen of Blades, right? So those, for me, in terms of the story, this is a lot better because this is more along the lines of like what they would do, because this single player is more about revenge, more about for your people, more about pride. So for me, this feels more. In terms of like the story, it's a lot better. I mean, gameplay-wise, it's like I said, it's similar, the same thing. Basically, go to this point, kill this, the same stuff. But I think the story-wise, the campaign-wise, this is a lot better. Steve?
Well, I think Sean needed to finish. Now, Sean gets a lot more in the multiplayer aspects than either one of us do. So I think he has some good input there as to what his thoughts on the game are, especially new units and things like that.
Well, I don't know exactly all the new units yet. The difference that I see just out of a couple days playing and watching a few streams on Twitch is that the game's a lot more. You're thrown right into the mid game. Before there was a very slow ramp up time. There was probably a good 2-3 minutes of nothing really happening at all outside of a random cheeky rush. There was really not a whole lot of action going. they removed that by giving you a lot more workers in the very beginning. You start with 12 workers as opposed to 6 or 8 before, which is incredible for increasing the tempo of the game. So the moment you start and you get into this game, you're already knee-deep in like a battle between the other person. So basically from the very beginning to the end, you're constantly fighting an army along with your macro at the same time. I think it's a little overwhelming for any new users that want to get into it, especially with their focus on unique abilities that your units are going to have. So you have more micro options. When I say micro, I mean you have your army, and then you have to control your army. So if you have like 50 units, you're going to have to control special abilities, maybe 2 or 3 abilities on different placements of the units, Protoss in particular, and it's just a lot for someone to handle. It's really, for me, it's very entertaining, and I really look forward to the challenge. But for the casual gamer base, I'm not really sure they're really targeting that, and I think it's going to push some of the people away. So that, or they're just simply not going to use the micro tools that are available to them. So
Yeah.
and they just like attack move and just send their army to go kill something and hope they win based on the coin flip.
No,
That's what I
I've
do.
always been intimidated by the Starcraft multiplayer, and a lot of that is that people are just leagues better than me. And it's interesting to note that they removed that sort of very boring beginning game, because a lot of what you read about online in terms of competitive multiplayer for Starcraft is about your initial build order, and by changing up the sort of number of workers you have and how much minerals that you're collecting at a regular interval, I think getting that push into the mid game that you would expect from the previous generation of StarCraft competitive games really allows for more freedom to explore different tech options and actually get the full breadth of the available units that are in the game. And a lot of people in the last generation of multiplayer would get just rushed out of the game really quick because they get a bunch of cheap units at the beginning and just basically obliterate the next guy before they even see their first units. So I mean that's something that's interesting because it might be daunting at first for a new player or even a player like me who's kind of seen this before and is trying to learn how to be on that sort of competitive level. But I think it still makes the game more interesting and possibly better for viewing on esports. As far as the game is concerned as a whole, I'm loving the campaign. I'm in the middle of it now. I took the day off on Tuesday in order to buy it and start playing it. I'm playing it on hard, so I'm not getting quite as far as quickly as Alan is. The story, I'm loving it in comparison with the 2 previous games, Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. Alan's right, the love story is a little cheesy, but I tell you what, I really love the Wings of Liberty campaign, that sort of comeback from the original StarCraft and that working in of the universe. They did a great job of reintegrating the game and getting everyone together again. Now, as far as something like co-op, Alan mentioned, co-op is phenomenal. I got a chance to play 2 of the missions. It seems really easy, at least on the normal and hard modes. I haven't tried the brutal option on it yet, and I'm sure the game gets a little more difficult, of course, in terms of that co-op. But it's essentially just spaced out missions that don't really have any bearing on sort of the universe, from what I can tell. And they're very much in the breadth of campaign missions that you get during the story. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Unfortunately, it's only 2 players, but I think that's still good enough. That basically sort of wraps up in a whole and condenses and adds upon what we kind of blew up and lost during the last stream yesterday. And as bonus content, we're actually going to talk about really quick a video that Sean posted in our chat just before we went live here, and that's actually a video of Cloud from Final Fantasy VII joining the lineup for the new Smash Brothers that's out on Wii U. Interesting video. We'll put it in the video description down below. This way you guys can check it out too. But I just wanted to continue a conversation regarding that, in that Alan brought up, hey, what has Nintendo really been doing other than Smash Brothers and adding characters to it? Sean had a sort of kind of PO'd response a little bit that I got, but we didn't get to hear all of it because I stopped him because I wanted to have this out on the show. So Sean, go ahead and what do you think about Alan's little tweak saying that Nintendo has no balls these days, basically?
Well, just remind me, what regards? No balls in what regards?
I never said they didn't have balls. I'm just saying that they just don't. They haven't had any. They haven't done anything, really exciting or nothing that's kind of other than the fact that they've. I'm just saying this is from my point of view. This isn't just Nintendo. This is also in terms of Square Enix and SquareSoft. This is my point of view. You don't have to agree with it, okay? But that's just my point of view. I mean, I'm not a hardcore Nintendo fan, but from my perspective, there doesn't seem to be anything that's brand new. I mean, it is great that they have all these well-loved characters, Mario, Donkey Kong, and all these guys, but it doesn't seem like they've done anything else outside of that.
All
I
right,
mean,
all right. Really think about that statement real quick. We were just lauding Blizzard with their content, their quality, and the time that it takes to release new content. And it takes quite a while, actually. Same thing with Valve. Valve keeps re-releasing the same game over and over again, and it takes years, 5, 6 years for them to release new content. We're still waiting for Half-Life 3. You know, you have Call of Duty.
We're never going to see that, by the way.
No, we're not in our lifetimes. No.
not even our kids' lifetime.
No, but then you have Halo. Halo is the same game over and over again. So what is so different from Nintendo's approach? I would argue that Nintendo does the same kind of model where they take the same, formula that they have with the game, and each time they give you a unique, fresh experience. Every Zelda game that has come out has been unique and different and refreshing. And even though Skyward Sword was the bastard child of the series, it was still different and really paid homage to the series as a whole. They have utmost quality of every release that they give out. Has anyone ever complained about a single Mario Kart release? No, not a single person. They all have their favorites from the childhood.
Yeah.
But they keep releasing the same game, but it's always top quality, and they have a huge, strong fan base that'll never diminish because of that. It might not grow nearly as much as the other games, but really, that Nintendo's really holding strong.
Well, that's what kind of my argument is, that they're not growing. That's the problem, because there are going to be future generations. Because think about it, as we get older, we're going to be less inclined to play video games. Whether we like to believe that or not, we're going to be less inclined to play video games.
We did touch on this just before the show started too.
Yeah.
You do have the mobile platforms that they're going to be launching apps for.
I agree. I know. That's why they're trying to do that.
That's where our gaming is going, really.
Exactly.
I mean, for us getting older.
I agree. That's why you have to make. That's what they're trying. That's kind of their way of trying to grow within this new, because they're like gaming in terms of like the games from back in Japan. I feel like it's slowly dying down, because back then, like back in PlayStation 2, Sony and like PlayStation, remember everything was like Final Fantasy or like all these, like they had all these big titles from Japan. But after a while, since I think the 360 era with PS3, a lot of their stuff has been dying down. I think that's a lot to do with their studios, where apparently I've read some articles where they're not as efficient as the American ones. But it's also because how the market, what we want as a consumer has changed as well. So how we want what we perceive as dark and gritty to be quality. Like everyone's talking about why don't we have why don't we have you see how Batman's so good now, they're dark and gritty? Why don't we make what you call it, like an X-Men movie that's R-rated, it's dark and gritty. Just because it's dark and gritty doesn't mean it's quality. However, that's kind of what we are perceiving as, is if you make something that's dark and gritty, it's going to be better. But that's not necessarily the case. But that's unfortunately a perspective.
That's just appealing to an older fan base.
Oh, yeah.
A target audience. That's all they're doing.
Yeah,
they're really expanding that to the 25 to 40-year-old market, as opposed to just the youth.
Well, I think that Nintendo is definitely going the way, or maybe it's too early to tell, but I think they're starting to move in that direction of what Sega sort of did towards the end of their years. Sega ended up porting.
You don't want to say that in front of Sean.
Porting and making games for other consoles, like on Xbox and PlayStation. You had Sonic games that went that direction. Now, I definitely see Nintendo is really. They had a great success with the Wii, and absolutely blew up the company and allowed it to really stay alive in this generation. But I think slowly, without the hardware part of it, especially since hardware on multiple platforms is going away because the cloud, I think there's something to be said about the intellectual property that they have. They have a lot of it. and that's worth more to them if they can get it to more people.
Yeah.
And that might mean abandoning their hardware platform and trying to move to something like a mobile development service that's available on Android and on iTunes or iOS. Or even moving to something like Xbox and PlayStation. I think there's something to be said about them changing their business model. Very much like you mentioned at the very beginning of this, how we're not going to see a Half-Life 3, and I think that's because Valve has kind of changed their business model. They're really not a game development house. They're really moving in the direction of a game provider. You have Steam and all the Steam hardware they're coming out with, and their support of Dota, which was already an existing service, but they're trying to promote it in esports. So, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about that. Sean, any final comments about this?
Yeah.
As Valve or Steam sitting back and just being the content facilitator as opposed to developer?
Well, I mean, even looking at Nintendo and why they might be moving that direction and why that might be a good idea for them.
I think with their limited, set of franchises that they have, I think it is a really good idea. They obviously have the resources to do this, and they have the money, like the capital to go ahead and try this venture and possibly fail and still be able to survive for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I think their marketing approach is unique, and I'm very interested to see how their mobile platform in particular is really going to take off. They have all these old titles that are perfectly designed for the mobile platform, and they can instantly port and just make millions off of this instant revenue. But as far as bringing third-party on, that's never been their forte. Of all the Nintendo consoles that have come out, they have very little third-party support that has really taken off. I can't even think of one off the top of my head, to be quite honest with you.
No, not even Resident Evil. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if any of their IP has really hit other platforms. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Or even on their own platform that they did successfully, So it's
no, like, Resident Evil. They had Resident Evil 4 for a while.
I'm a little skeptical, so I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I don't think it's going to do well.
That's kind of my argument, is that they don't have the games to support their hardware. You know what I mean? Like, because people buy a console, they want to play games. But if they don't have any games, no one's going to buy those consoles. I'm not saying their games. All right, maybe I'm going to retract a little bit in terms of, like, I'm not saying their games are not good. I'm just saying that they could do more. They can benefit more off of it. So, like, I'm reading some of the stuff for the mobile apps right now. The only thing they're releasing right now is called Miitimbo or whatever it's called, where basically you have like those little Me guys or Meebos, and basically it's like a Gigapet basically, and you're just running around with them. So if I were Nintendo, I wouldn't do that. I would try to capitalize on stuff like Mario or Donkey Kong or Pokemon and try to, you have those IP. Why don't you just use it? It's kind of frustrating because they have all these great IPs that, like you said, people love. But the problem is that they're not using it in terms of like their full capacity. That's what I believe. Sean, you have any rebuttal on that?
I have something. So there's a number of fantastically terrible games that use IP from Nintendo. I mean, now I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this. And you have things like Mario Paint or Mario's Missing. And other games are very similar to like that. I'm sure that some artsy-fartsy people are probably really happy that those games came out. But honestly, they didn't hit the mass market like your typical Mario game. So I mean, there's definitely something to be said about hey, let's just put out something that has our IP on it, because
True.
You could ruin the IP by doing it. Although
that's true.
I think at this point it might be difficult to ruin something like Mario. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to wrap things up at this point, just because we've ran really long. Sorry, I mean, Alan, do you have some last comment?
No, not really. I mean, me and Sean we'll have this argument tomorrow at D&D.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Hopefully we don't have them again in this video. Alan, thank you for coming back on again tonight. Any last words?
Shit, maybe I should have started Charles Clay. Thanks for coming back and watching us. Sorry, Sean. I know you're gonna hate me. I do like Nintendo, but that was my first console. But Yeah.
Sean, thanks for joining us once again as our special guest to try and fix the little boo-boo that we had with the technical difficulties. You have anything for the audience or for us?
Yeah, don't start Charles Clay. You're gonna lose, but just don't start him.
Yeah, I know.
No, really, really.
I'm going to win. I'm
No,
going
thanks
to win.
for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to the next time I get to come on.
All right, thanks again, everyone. Jersey Hobby Hour, again, a show where we just talk about anything that we really like, including entertainment, gaming, current events, that type of stuff. We're on every Wednesday at 8 p.m., and we're live when we do it. So there's a possibility of some bad stuff happening. Join us next week. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next time.